Today we'll be going over the new Heroes banner featuring the Dawn Brigade from Radiant Dawn. Headlining our new units is Attuned Micaiah and Rearmed Sothe. Newcomers to fray are Leonardo and Edward. Sadly, it seems like they left Nolan at home. We'll cover everyone's stats and new skills, plus discuss general playstyle and build ideas. Attuned Micaiah has a couple issues with incorrect skill descriptions. You'll want to know what she actually does because she's stronger than I originally thought. First up, Leonardo is our 4-star focus unit. He will demote into the 3 to 4-star pool after the banner is over. Leonardo is a colorless infantry archer. For stats, he has 40 HP, 44 attack, 42 speed, 26 defense, and 36 res. Tag super boon. We've had a lot of free-to-play archers into the game within the last year or so. Leonardo isn't breaking any records stat-wise, but he does have a respectable attack and speed spread. Dorothy's still a monster if you want an offensive colorless archer, and Grim Alchemist and Cyril are both really good if you don't mind red. Leonardo has a small res focus, but 36 base res is only 10 behind Spring Linhardt. He's kind of a much faster variant of, say, Candace or Will. Now, for old skills, Leonardo has Luna for his special and Guard 3. He then brings in amazing free-to-play skill in Attack and Res Finish 3. We have a decent amount of Attack and Res Finish 4 users, so Leonardo can be a great help in skill inheriting. For his inheritable weapon, Leonardo has the Doubler Bow plus 12 might. Every turn if within 2 spaces of an ally, the user and those allies get plus 6 attack and res field buffs. If initiating or near an ally, gain bonus doubler 4 essentially, you get a base plus 4 stats and you double up on any field buffs active. Doubler Bow is not the double bow, sorry, Shinon already laid claim to that. Instead, it quite literally is a bonus doubler 4 weapon. It also provides attack and res field buff support, so that's another route you can take if you want. Doubler Bow is similar to last year's Halloween Inheritables. For general playstyle, Doubler Bow Plus can just go all in on bonus doubler stacking. If you want a self-sufficient speed and defense buff, we have Oath 3, but there's no Oath 4 or Pledge offshoots. While Attack and Res Finish is a fine skill, you could opt for bonus doubler 4 or close bonus doubler. Leonardo is not going to be any kind of crazy tank, but you can try to be annoying with no follow-up. Upgrade to the tier 4 for half DR piercing. Very simple stat stacking build. Another option for Doubler Bow is team support. You can try to buff allies with Rally plus Ruse support, or maybe try to invest in res focused skills. The Carrot Bow is a ploy type weapon if you do want to go hard on flat res. For the most part, Leonardo isn't super specialized, but he has enough speed to build the usual offensive setups. Lucrative or White Wind Bow offering no follow-up and attack and speed stacking. White Cap Bow has brave attacks potentially. Golden Yellow Bow has instant cooldown, and Heart Bow has decent % DR. Since Leonardo is sort of a more balanced unit stat-wise, and I'm tired of covering the same free-to-play archer builds, let's do something a little weird. First off, both Arcane Bows are returning soon as part of the Midpoint celebration. With Arcane Dark Bow, Leonardo can get Desperation, 2 taps, and Slaying. You add Tempo 4 for half DR piercing and no guard. This gives Leonardo some offensive pressure, but what about dipping into some support? While we have many good attack and speed boosters, you could do Still Water or the new Crystalline Water for flat attack and res. We then try to proc Ploy 4s for team support. In a fitting manner, since our stats are kinda all over the place, Squad Ace BZ can give plus 3 attack, speed, and res. This strange setup has some offensive potential and some support via debuffs. Leonardo isn't going to be the best on damage, speed, or res, but you can try to work with all of those stats. He's not going to be the best for a particular role, but you can try strange mix and match combos like this. Just for some other generally good skills to mention, in the A slot, Flash Sparrow, Remote Sparrow, or Hexblade. For B skills, Assassin Strike, Low Speed and Defense, maybe Guard or Brush 4. C slot, Times Pulse, Pulse Up, Pledge for cooldown. Infantry no follow-up could work for support. For attuned skills, Guard or Fleeting Echo can provide some % DR protection. Leonardo is not a bad demote, but he won't be top dog for offensive builds or a super res stacker. Among the higher res archers though, he is the fastest easily, so if you want to prioritize speed and resistance, then Leonardo can fill that niche. Our next unit is Edward. He's taken his shot at being the hot swordmaster for the month. For stats, Edward has 40 HP, 43 attack, 46 speed, 43 defense, and 21 res. Tag super boon. Edward has good attack and speed stats, but his 43 base defense is what stands out. He's a bit of an anomaly for Swordmasters and is closest to Flame Rinka, but with more attack and speed while sacrificing res further. Defense is very important to Edward's kit, so this unusual spread will serve a purpose. Now for old skills, Edward is another godlike reflexes plus buffer 4 holder, just like Severa. Unlike poor Leonardo, Edward does get to keep his unique Calibogue sword. I had no idea these weapons were not in the Japanese version of Radiant Dawn, so it's pretty interesting to see it return in Fey. Calibogue was also a sword in Engage, but I don't think it's a reference or anything. Now, this weapon has 16 might, excited specials. If above 25% at start of combat, Edward gets a lot of things. First, bonus stats equal to 25% of the foe's attack stat at start of combat, -4. The foe needs 72 flat attack for the max +14 bonus. Next, Edward gets no guard. He gets half DR piercing on every attack. Before the foe attacks, Edward gets -1 instant cooldown. During combat, reduce damage from every attack by Y. If the foe is triggering a special, Edward gets 16 flat DR. Otherwise, he gets 8 flat DR for all hits. Last up, Edward's next counterattack deals true damage equal to the total damage he has reduced, including all other sources. Calibogue is 100% meant to be run with Godlike Reflexes. Edward gets half DR piercing and empowered counterattacks to up his damage. With buffer 4, Godlike Reflexes is pre-charged, but his counter will bring the special back to 1 cooldown guaranteed. For the next fight, right before the foe attacks, Edward gains that -1 instant cooldown to recharge Godlike Reflexes. On top of that defensive special, you got flat DR. Similar to Excel, you get bonus flat DR when facing special procs. Pretty wild weapon, and it's not even the craziest thing in Edward's kit. Edward's new inheritable C skill is Breath of Life 4, tier 4 upgrade for a launch skill, and it's certainly breathing some new life into a completely new effect here. For allies within 2 spaces of unit, restore X HP to that ally as their combat begins. If that ally has higher defense than their opponent, X is 20% of the ally's max HP, plus the difference between defense stats times 4. If you have lower defense, you still heal for 20% max health. Now, the max HP healing amount is equal to 40% max HP plus the damage dealt to ally as combat begins. This instant pre-combat healing takes place after instant pre-combat damage occurs. Breath of Life 4 also applies to the user. You just use their own defense and HP stats for all the checks. Last part of the skill states if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, unit and those allies gain +4 defense in combat and reduce deep wounds by 50% during combat. This skill is crazy. Let's do an example to break it down. Let's say we have a 50 HP Breath of 4 life user. They take 30 instant damage. If you don't have higher defense, you would still heal 20% of 50 HP, aka 10 health. This happens right after the 30 instant damage is applied. Now let's say you do have higher defense than the enemy. For every point of higher defense, you heal 4 extra HP. This technically can scale up and up, but there's a maximum cap. This max healing amount is 40% of your max HP, plus any damage dealt as combat begins. In our example, 40% of 50 is 20. The unit took 30 instant damage, therefore their max healing amount possible is 20 plus 30 or 50 HP. That's coincidentally, that's our max HP value, but you can go higher. To reach this max cap, you're gonna need 10 or more defense. The base heal is 20% max health, so that's 10 health. We can heal 40 more HP. To get 40 more HP, 4 times 10 gets our 40 extra healing. Some reminders, at start of combat checks occur before as combat begins. Edward cannot start on very low HP, heal above 25% as combat begins, then activate his weapon. No, you must enter combat already above 25% health. Breath of Life 4 also has the anti-deep wounds effect. It's not worded very well, but do know that this effect does affect Fatal Smoke in combat. Outside of combat, deep wounds must be cleansed or no healing at all. Obviously, Breath of Life 4 is here to counter all the Flared Strike instant damage abusing. However, keep in mind this skill always heals every new fight. If you enter a fight on 1 health, you will heal 20% max HP minimum. With enough defense, you can heal up to 40% max HP. Because the max healing value includes all the instant damage you take, you can straight up cancel out all that damage. To do this, you're going to need to have enough defense over the enemy. To prevent that from happening as an attacker, instant damage users basically have to run Fatal Smoke, and even that may not be enough. Really low defense users potentially lose any kind of instant damage advantage against Breath of Life 4. It also potentially weakens AoE specials, but in those scenarios, you can only heal 40% max HP back. Now, this skill is gonna be something. The fact it applies to nearby allies is hilariously unnecessary, and it's super easy to fodder while also being usable by everyone. I really hope you had a plan to one-shot guys like Emblem Ike, because if you do not kill him, he's not even going to need Grey Aether to refill that HP bar. For the most part, Breath of Life 4 doesn't even need to be run on Edward, he just has a higher defense stat to synergize. Feel free to run other C skills like Oath 4, Infantry No Follow, or Smokes. Edward's main gameplay revolves around godlike reflexes. He pre-charges with buffer, but you technically just need -1 cooldown to get the ball rolling. This is because with slang and an instant -1 cooldown before the foe attacks, Edward can recharge every fight. When he counters back, no guard guarantees he's at 1 cooldown to loop the whole thing. You don't need buffer if you want more %DR. Bulwark or NLC Disc can work at lower %DR values. However, the reason for buffer is its dodge 4 traits. It's a lot of extra speed you need to trigger godlike reflexes. If you don't want a dodge skill, you could do Lagu's Friend. Edward could double stack flat DR, and you could get a third source via Excel A skills. Throw in Emblem Ike, and boy, that does not sound fun to face. The main issue with Lagu's Friend and godlike reflexes is not having enough speed. However, if you don't mind not having melee and ranged threats covered, you could do Pavis or Aegis instead. Now, for a non-speed special, you could do Ignis. Because of Calibogue, Edward actually can charge Ignis when using Lagu's Friend. This lets him proc Emblem Ike's Ring, and now you have a super high burst special counter that is stacking all the damage Edward reduced plus its DR piercing. For some other fun skills, obviously this encounter for GLR is great. You could do D bonus doublet or run the Sacred Seal. As a modern swordmaster, Edward also doesn't get no follow-up. Typically you want that when you're running speed-based skills. For Sacred Seals, more HP via the squad ace options are nice, and the new attack and defense finish works excellently as well. For attuned skills, Guard Echo just adds extra protection. Overall, Edward looks like a fun godlike reflexes unit. His low base res may not be great for mage tanking, but if he can survive, then he has a great chance at one-shot retaliations. Against instant damage abusers, Edward potentially kills their entire free damage niche with Breath of Life 4. The scary thing is that this skill isn't just a counter to instant damage. A user straight up gets 20% max HP back every new fight, and if you have higher defense, that could be up to 40% max HP. Don't be surprised if Fatal Smoke type skills start showing up on more units, cause good lord, it's gonna be an interesting summer for sure. Our first special unit of the banner is Rearmed Sothe. I'm not really sure if we're ever gonna get a legendary ult for him, but if we do, I kinda thought they would have used this outfit, which is his promoted Whisper class outfit. If you never played Radiant Dawn, there are some very cool endgame classes. For his ult, Sothe is once again a Class Dagger infantry. He has 43 HP, 43 attack, 47 speed, 30 defense, 25 res. Attack and speed super bands are excellent, although he favors speed for his kit, no surprise. For ult skills, Sothe has attack and speed finish 4, attack and speed pledge. Alir is finally sharing that pledge variant, and finish 4 is a great skill as always. Sothe brings the second arcane dagger, Arcane Tempest. From Sharina's Meet the Heroes page, she says the hilt of the weapon represents the crest of Dayan. I assume the background dragon is the same. Arcane Tempest is a 14-man weapon. It accelerates specials, and every turn, if specials at max value, you get -1 cooldown. For combat, when above 25% HP, you get bonus stats equal to 25% of the foe's attack stat at start of combat, -4. If the foe has a 72 flat attack, you get the max plus 14 to all stats, just like Edward. In addition, the user gets 30% DR for first attacks with an S, and if you outspeed the enemy, you get full no follow-up effects. Arcane Tempest is the speed-focused arcane dagger option. Instead of breath type cooldown, this weapon has times pulse. That can put lethality on 2 cooldown, but you're gonna need some extra cooldown to get it going. You could instead pre-charge any 2 cooldown specials. For combat, 30% damage reduction is just a generally nice defensive perk, and this weapon can grant a lot of bonus stats. If a foe has 60 attack, that's still a respectable plus 11 to all stats. All around, it's a solid arcane offering. If you want to go fast, Arcane Tempest may be more enticing than Void. To help stand out, Sothe gets a unique special, Bane. 2 cooldown. When it triggers, you treat the foe's defense res stat as if reduced by 40%. This is a full-on DR piercing special, and if Sothe doesn't KO with Bane, the damage he deals increases, so it's 1 less than the foe's current HP. Last, if the special is radio has triggered by either unit, Sothe gets 30% DR for the next attack. Bane is the unique skill of the Whisper class. Voka kinda took lethality for himself, so Bane is sort of a lethality light. Instead of the instant kill, you leave foes on 1 HP, just like good old False Swipe. In terms of damage, Bane is basically half lethality with half the cooldown. To be clear, Faye's version of Bane will KO the enemy if Sothe deals enough damage. When Sothe doesn't have enough damage, Bane automatically deals more damage to bring a foe to 1 HP. Now, the catch is that while this does pierce %DR skills, the increased damage is still affected by unpierceable %DR and flat DR. The other obvious issue is that regardless of how much HP the foe has, Sothe still needs to finish them off with a second attack. This is why he has his own 30% DR on Bane. Add that to Arcane Tempest for around 50-something% DR. Now, Sothe's last new skill is the inheritable Potent Disarm. very literal name. This is basically potent comboed with disarm trap. Inflict -4 speed and defense on the foe. You have a normal potent follow-up rules, aka if you decrease the speed check by 25 and that would have let you follow it up, you now trigger a potent follow-up. If the user cannot perform a normal follow-up attack, the potent follow-up does 80% damage. If you can follow up normally, the potent follow-up acts as a third hit and deals 40% damage. In Aether Raids, you can destroy bolt and heavy traps and lower hex trap HP checks by 10. Do note that unlike Disarm Trap, there's no offense and no follow-up effect, and unlike Potent 4, there's no 30% DR effect. If you can outspeed, then generally offense and a follow-up is better to have. However, if you can't outspeed fully as long as you're within 20 of speed of the enemy, you can get that Potent attack and deal some damage. Potent can synergize with things like Finish 4 for extra healing. It's a fun effect and can be an option for units who have some speed but aren't the fastest outright. Let's now go over Rearmed Sothe's game plan. First off, he pre-charges Bane every turn. If Bane can get the KO with his DR piercing special, then Sothe can one-shot cleanly. If Sothe doesn't have enough damage, Bane gives enough damage to put the foe on 1 health. Sothe has 30% DR from Arcane Tempest and unprincipled 30% DR from Bane since he triggered it already. If Sothe can survive, he will double if he outspeeds thanks to no follow-up. Thanks to Pledge, Bane recharges even against guard when Sothe takes a hit back. Hopefully Bane scores the KO on the second hit, and if not, you have a chance at a potent follow-up too. Against very fast enemies, if Sothe is close in speed, Potent can give Sothe the second Bane proc, assuming no scowl effects. Finish 4 also triggers on every hit for Sothe. Pledge can give some self buffs and the extra stats in combat. Overall, standard initiator stuff, just that Bane can straight up give Sothe enough damage to put foes to 1 health. The main issue for Sothe is that 1 HP doesn't mean the foe is dead, and they can KO him on the counter. Honestly, instead of Potent Disarm, I feel like Desperation is better, and the tier 4 can let Sothe use that at full HP. If the foe is on 1 health, Sothe just needs to tap them again. However, this leads into another issue in that Bane is still affected by flat damage reduction and unpierceable % damage reduction. It is possible triggering Bane isn't enough for a second hit to finish the job. Additionally, if you use Desperation, a basic attack doesn't have DR piercing either, which may fail into things like Deflect. Now, this Sothe is still very scary, but Emblem Ike is a huge factor considering his own combat prowess and his ability to share unpierceable % DR for ranged hits and the Goose Friend offering flat DR. Excel is another possible deterrent. For the most part, Sothe's main issue is surviving if he can't get clean KOs. Besides Desperation, you could try to stack % DR, you could use remote A skills, Brash 4, even Fleeting Echo. Guard 4 or Guard Echo could help Sothe prevent enemy specials. I would consider pairing Guard with Speed and Defense Tempo 4. Arcane Tempest and Bane's % DR do work on enemy phase, so adding some anti-cooldown effects could maybe help Sothe out. With Tempo, you could also swap Pledge out for Oath 4's Warping. If you got buffs, Fatal Smoke 4 or any Smoke 4 could be fine for mixed phasing. Some other fun skills are Times Pulse or Pulse Up for non-Bane builds. For example, you could just go 4 lethalities. I mean, if you're skill inheriting Arcane Tempest, Sothe may end up with lethality anyway. For a more fun generalist setup, you could try Close Counter. Arcane Tempest has a decent amount of stats plus 30% DR. Overall, Rearmed Sothe is a fun dagger unit assassin. Technically, you could do funny things like Bane plus Fatal Smoke for chip damage, but after seeing Breath of Life 4, 1 round KOing is even more important than before. Last up for today is Attuned Micaiah. She's dressed in green to match up with Sothe, maybe too appropriately. She's a very chaotic unit. Not only in gameplay, but she also has 2 incorrect skill descriptions. One has been addressed on the Fae Twitter officially, but I don't know if they realized the second problem. Now, assuming her in-game performance is correct, both mistakes benefit Micaiah, and she is stronger than expected. Now, for this ult, Micaiah is a green flying mage. She has 40 HP, 47 attack, 16 speed, 30 defense, 46 res, attack super boom. This Micaiah sacrifices all speed for an actually decent base defense stat. She may be a bit tougher to take out. Now, for ult skills, Micaiah keeps her unique Maiden Solace Assist, Harsh Command Plus with a heal that uses her own health. Her one ult inheritable skill is Fireflood Boost 3 for bonus HP and guard potential. Micaiah's weapon is the Silver of Dawn, 14 my tome with a whole lot going on. First up, a couple passes. Allies within 2 spaces of Micaiah can warp to any space within 2 spaces of her. This is Guidance 4 type warping for any unit type. Next, at start of enemy phase, Micaiah heals herself and allies within 2 spaces for 10 HP. After the start of turn effects trigger on the enemy phase, Micaiah converts stat debuffs on herself and allies nearby into positive field buffs. This is Harsh Command. Second, she neutralizes 2 penalty status effects on herself and those nearby allies. Currently, the in-game description in English does not state the allies portion, but from testing, allies do indeed get the cleanse. This mistake has not been officially acknowledged, so I don't know if it's intended. Now, to make this cleanse more complicated, Micaiah only cleanses 2 status effects, and it goes in order from top to bottom of that new active status list. I will link a Reddit post in the description from user SoftBrilliant, who has tested the order of each status Micaiah can cleanse. It's a bit long, but the main one you need to know is that Panic is always going to be cleansed. This is a big deal because when Micaiah converts debuffs into buffs, if Panic were still active, those field will just turn into negative again. By getting rid of Panic, Micaiah always turns debuffs into buffs guaranteed and safely. I also made a mistake in my other video. I think I said this doesn't affect skills like Ploy 4. However, this cleanse triggers after start of turn on the enemy phase. This means Ploy 4 applies its debuffs first, then Micaiah will convert the debuffs and cleanse exposure and that Ploy status. Keep in mind, this only happens on enemy phase. In the player phase, Ploy 4 can still debuff Micaiah's team, making initiations harder. Alright, with that out of the way, Micaiah still has combat perks. She has her signature armor and cavalry effectiveness, slaying. If above 25% HP, inflict attack and res debuffs equal to 20% res from the start of combat, and inflict a base -6 on top. Neutralize the foe's attack and res field buffs. Last, deal true damage equal to the number of allies within 3 rows, 3 columns, times 5. With 3 allies in that zone, you can get a max plus 15 true damage. This is a pretty insane weapon. Warping, healing, status cleansing utility. Micaiah can convert debuffs into buffs. She will hit hard with around -15 or so res attack and res on the foe, plus you get 15 true damage, and she ignores field buffs. You then got Slain. Next, Micaiah's unique B skill is Yoon's Protection. Every turn, the foe with the highest attack, speed, and defense and res stats get hit by Exposure, Discord, and -7 to that corresponding stat. All of these effects also splash onto other enemies within 2 spaces. This effect should be familiar since it's Mythic Yoon's debuffing effect. This was also added to Dual Micaiah's Refine. Instead of Panic, Attuned applies Exposure and Discord. For the second part, when you initiate, or within 2 spaces of an ally, inflict -5 attack and res on the foe, inflict more attack and res debuffs equal to the highest total penalties among the target and foes within 2 spaces. Finally, Micaiah gets half DR Piercing. In red is the second description mistake. This one has been officially acknowledged, and like it works in-game, instead of a sabotage type effect, it takes the highest total amount of stat debuffs. So let's say the enemy is grouped up. They get hit by all of the debuffs, so -7 to all stats. Instead of only inflicting -7 debuffs to attack and res on top of the base -5, you actually inflict -28 plus -5. Yeah, that's a little different from what was expected. This may not be dominant true damage, but Micaiah also inflicts attack debuffs with this version. She is certainly not a super frail mage. For Attuned status, Micaiah's Attuned X skill is Far Trace Echo. Pretty self-explanatory, enables Kanto remaining with a minimum Kanto 1. Unit deals 3 true damage per hit in combat and for AoE specials. Far Trace Echo is for ranged cows and flyers. Those units do not get Alarm C skills for another Kanto option in builds, so this is the next best option if you want to run a different B skill. Do note, this is actually Far Trace 4's version of Kanto, so you always get Kanto 1. Last new inheritable skill for today is Attack and Res Crux. This is our second Crux skill, and these are another tier 4 rain upgrade. Inflict -4 attack and res on any foes within 3 rows or 3 columns, centered on unit. In addition, those foes take a free follow-up attack as well. Crux is very interesting and a neat skill. Instead of Hode's 3-space range, Crux extends across the whole map. The free follow-up can be appreciated by any allies, although mostly slower units benefit more. You can stack free follow-ups as well, but be aware of no follow-up. Last month for a framework combat manuals, you got Bridal Sophia. She has attack and res range 3 and hold, so if you want a free upgrade path, you can use this to get to Crux. Now, Attuned Micaiah is a very interesting unit. She debuffs chaotically unless the enemy team is grouped up, then everyone sort of just gets hit by everything. Micaiah wants this ideally because she inflicts more attack and res debuffs based on the total amount of debuffs on the target or nearby foes. If a foe is hit by all -7 debuffs, that's -28. Silver of Dawn should inflict another around -15 or so. Crux is another -4. This is over 40 points of attack and res debuffs. In case that wasn't enough, Micaiah has effectiveness against cows and armors. She has half DR Piercing, Exposure is 10 true damage, and Silver of Dawn can inflict another 15 true damage. Similar to Dual Sanaki, if you cannot get rid of debuffs, Micaiah is just going to blast you into the ground. She can get a follow-up thanks to Crux, and her massive attack debuffs potentially are enough to survive a counter. Fire Flip Boost can provide guard, although it's mainly for a mixed phase stat booster. You could do Remote Mirror for percent DR, and of course Flared Mirror, although for reasons we talked about, that may be a little risky. If anything, the flame tiles from Flared Mirror would be good because Micaiah has Fortress Echo to retreat. Very scary Nuki Mage, and not an easy kill either. Along with her debuffs, Micaiah also provides 2-space warping for all allies nearby. She heals 10 HP every enemy phase, and after the enemy triggers their at start of turn skills, Micaiah can harsh command any debuffs, converting them into field balls. She also cleanses 2 statuses. This follows a list of statuses, but most importantly, it cleanses panic, which means harsh command does its job. For some of the other skills, you could run Attackerman's Reign as a seal to stack with Crux. You could do Heavy Blade for higher Chronos specials, Quick Impulse for instant glimmers, or Aerobatic/Fire Formation to get Micaiah her own warping. This can also be done via Oath 4. Fatal Smoke can prevent healing/miracle. Panic can be devastating since those stack with Micaiah's debuffs. Overall, if you like dual Micaiahs Refined, then Attuned is doing a similar idea with even more support aspects. The cleanse after enemy phase starts is really strong, but it won't proc for player phase, which may be an issue. It also can't get rid of all penalties, it's only 2. You do have the option of using Maiden's Solace to cleanse penalties in the player phase, but movement skills are fine in there as well. Remember that with Kanto, you can reposition to use the 2-space warp aggressively. As for a flyer, you may be able to help ferry across certain terrain. All in all, very solid new ult, and Fortress Echo is a pretty nice new Attuned skill. That'll be it for this banner breakdown. Kind of an insane banner right before summer unleashes. Breath of Life 4 may just replace one issue with another. We'll have to see how wild things get next. If you like tanks, I would definitely keep an eye on that skill. Let me know your thoughts on these new units, and good luck if you're going to be summoning. Coming up, we have a Grand Hero battle for Jared. Another free-to-play Lance Infantry is upon us. We'll talk about it more next time. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.